Hallo and guten Tag. Welcome back to the Märklin Outsider. In today's episode, I want to talk a little bit about your options when looking for trains. In other words, if Märklin doesn't have what you want, whom do you turn to? Märklin operates in AC, as I've explained many times. You can do Märklin in DC using their Tricks label, as I explained in previous episodes. If you're operating in AC, you're limited into the amount of product that's out there. Märklin puts out 75% of all the mainline AC trains you're going to find. And Märklin, being a German company, is going to emphasize Europe. If you're into modeling American trains, every now and then Märklin releases a more popular American, whether it's a steam locomotive or like a Big Chief Santa Fe, something like that. They do release an American model every couple of years, but you're really limited. If you want to do the Märklin system and model American trains, then what you need to do is go with the Märklin system with their Tricks brand track and controllers, which you can still do just as easily, although you still have the issues of what to do with DC wiring and so forth, because there is a difference. But you're probably going to look at American companies like Ahern, Atlas, and others, MTH, who make American models and just run DC. But you can still get all the great advantages of the Märklin system. Just use their Tricks brand version of the C-Track, and the controllers are the same. The motors, the digital motors and everything are the same. So you can do it that way. But again, I'm modeling Germany and Central European stuff, and that's where my limited knowledge lays. So you like the advantages of AC over DC. You like the Märklin system, so where do you buy your trains? Outside of Märklin, you can't find what you want at Märklin. There are several companies that offer AC trains. Now, these companies emphasize DC, but they make some of their trains in AC version, never their full line. They just take maybe some of their more popular or top lines for each year and make AC versions of them as well. Now, there are many companies, as I just said, but there's three primary companies, and they are Roco, Piko, and Brawa. Roco, Piko, and Brawa are the top three sellers of AC trains after Märklin. There are pros and cons with each of these companies, just as there's pros and cons when you buy a Märklin train. All right, let's look at the three companies. I'll start with Roco. Roco is a company based in Austria, near the town of Salzburg. They emphasize Central European trains. They do make a couple of Spanish trains that I've noticed. They do a couple for Italy. But they're really Central Europe. They do some French models, Dutch, Belgian, but really the heart of their lineup is Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Hungary. They're probably one of the bigger manufacturers of trains from the Hungarian rail system. And they'll branch into the Czech Republic, Slovakia, and a little bit that way as well. In my opinion, and this is my opinion, limited knowledge opinion, but But after my preference for Märklin, I just like Märklin with Märklin stuff. I find Roco AC to have the widest range of available AC stuff. Yeah, maybe Piko's equal to it. But it's a great cross between quality and price. Roco makes very nice locomotives, very sharp locomotives. Here is a video of my Austrian Railjet, which is kind of their signature because the Railjet is Austria's #1 long-distance, high-speed train, and they're gorgeous. They're amazing trains. And Roco being an Austrian company, they're going to emphasize the great stuff from Austria. But as you can see, beautiful detail, lots of functions, and the price points are fair. They do have, like all companies, they have their lower price point models. But especially if you're buying a non-Märklin brand to put on your Märklin tracking system, pay, if you can, a little bit more and get their higher end stuff. It just works better with the Märklin system. But with the limited non-Märklin trains I have bought and then talked to other modelers and researched, Roco just seems to be the most compatible. They seem to have the fewest problems when you put them on the track, plug and play, get them going. Märklin stuff seems to work really well with Roco, or Roco really makes its stuff to work with Märklin much better, in my opinion, than the other two companies I'll mention. So Roco, nice range of products for AC, high quality, prices are fair. You're not going to find a lot of El Cheapo Rocos. Rocos are very good. Their digital chips are pretty good for the sound functions, and you always get a lot of functions. Now Roco, like all these companies I'm going to mention, makes 3 versions of any other models. They'll make an AC version with sound. If you buy an AC, it's going to have all the functions. They make a DC version with sound and all the functions, and then they make a stripped down DC version, a cheaper version of it. But AC will always be relatively expensive because it will have all the functions and the better chips in it. All right, so that's Roco. Very good company. Look them up and see if you can't find what you want in the Märklin brand, you can find it in Roco. All right, the second company is Piko, and maybe I'm mistaken when I mention Roco has the widest range. It just feels that way because Piko makes a lot of trains. Every year they release more models. A lot of them are just retools of models they've released previously and are re-releasing. But they release a wide variety of locomotives, cars, and such every year. I don't know that anybody releases more. When it comes to AC, they too release an AC version that has everything in it, a DC version that has everything in it, and then a stripped down DC version. Piko has 3 very specific price points. They have hobby, expert, and collector level. Hobby is their El Cheapos, as we call them. That's their lowest level, mostly plastic, basic stuff built into it. And they're still good, but they don't have the most detail. They don't have the most quality built into them. This is their cheap line. Expert and collector are their better lines. When I think of Piko, and this is kind of unfair, I tend to think of them as being cheap. Now, they have high-end, expensive models. When I say cheap, I just mean I often feel their build quality is not as good as Brawa, Märklin, or Roco for their mainline models. Their high-end stuff is just as good as can get. But they do cut corners in some places, in my opinion. Now, Piko is an amazing company. I don't want to be too negative about them. Also, Piko always makes their stuff to true 187 scale. Roco, usually 1:87 scale. Märklin, for longer passenger cars, they tend to do a 1:93 scale because Märklin still releases that radius 1 stuff, and the Piko and Roco cars will not work well, if at all, on radius 1. You need radius 2. Bam, back to Piko. The 3 Piko models I've had, only one was AC to begin with. The other 2 were conversions. And the one that I had that was a straight up AC really did not work as well as I would have liked. The 2 that were conversions, where I bought a DC model because they didn't make an AC version, I got to give credit to the gentleman, Andrew Chevalier at AC Euro Trains in Stockton, California. He put in higher quality chips, and he's a licensed Piko dealer. And he said, you know, the Piko chips really aren't the best. And he upgraded them, put in higher end MFX chips, and my 2 Piko trains that are converted by him work beautifully, like my Austrian Railjet right here. This is one of my favorites. And so, again, even if I'm knocking Piko, this is a gorgeous train, and converted, it runs beautifully on my layout. I'm thrilled with it. It's as good as any train I've got. But overall, I find Piko works a little less well with Märklin. Not that you would have problems in 99% of the cases. I just find at times Piko does not get along with some of the Märklin track or the Märklin control system at times. I don't know if that's a Märklin issue or Piko issue, but also you got to watch what you buy with Piko. Piko releases a lot of stuff. It's great stuff. The company really is a great company. I don't want to discourage anything. I just find that a lot of the Piko AC stuff with their basic AC chips and don't work as well. When you get them converted, they're gorgeous. But their mainline AC stuff doesn't always work well. And having said that, their ICE4, I know people in Germany that have bought the ICE4 to run on their Märklin C-Track, and they're loving it. They just think it's fantastic, and the functions and the sounds. But Märklin's going to try to top that with their release next year, so I'm holding out for that. Okay, the third company is called Brawa. Brawa makes extremely good, high quality product, but you pay for it. They make really nice locomotives, and I have no problem with the Brawa that I bought for my layout. It just worked perfectly with all my stuff here. I have absolutely no complaints. Lots of functions. The things with Brawa is that they are so beautifully built. They are pieces of art. This is my Brawa 146, the IC2 locomotive. This is the 43981 model. They make multiple versions of this model. Brawa makes an AC high end, they make an AC base, they make a DC high end, they make a DC base. And they'll often release different versions with different numbering, something a lot of the other companies won't do. So they'll release 5 versions of the IC2 locomotive with AC extra, AC basic, DC extra, DC basic. So that'd be like 10 different locomotives. But the 5 will have different numbering, slightly different alterations in the design to account for things. So it might have different destinations on its destination board, different number for what locomotive it's modeling. So they're really into details. Roco kind of does that too, but not nearly to the level Brawa does. But Brawa, if I were to say there were 2 negatives, and again, since I'm talking about things working with Märklin. Brawa works great with Märklin. I've never had a compatibility issue. Piko, I've had compatibility issues at times. Brava's just expensive. They don't have a cheap line. When you buy a Brawa, you're going to feel it. First of all, they're the heaviest locomotives I own. They're also the most expensive locomotive I own. And yet, because they're so detailed and they're so well made, they're also delicate. Now, how do you get that? They're so well made, but they're delicate. They put so much emphasis into even the smallest detail. They make such finely tuned motors and engines inside that they can be fragile because they make them so exquisitely. Brawas are so detailed. They have so much stuff in them. They're so well built that A, they're expensive, and B, they can be fragile if you don't take care of them properly. So those are the three big companies that make stuff. There are other companies. There is another Austrian company called the Jägendorfer collection. Jägendorfer only releases 2 or 3 models a year, and they primarily emphasize Austria. They don't release a wide range of product, and probably 2/3, 3/4 of their releases are Austria. And then they also do Hungary, because Austria and Hungary connected border-wise and everything else, and they aim to that market a little. They occasionally do German trains, but for the most part, Jägendorfer emphasizes Austria. I have never owned a Jägendorfer. I will say this. They might be the prettiest trains out there in terms of detail. They can be pricey, but I love the Roco Railjet, and I think my Roco Railjet, as much as I love my Märklin stuff, my Roco Railjet is my favorite train. I think it's just the coolest train I've got. And that's color scheme, detail, quality, all of that combined. It's just gorgeous. And I love my Märklins, so I don't want to be dissing on Märklin. Jägendorfer collection. They, like Brawa, really put the work in. They are fabulous. Their rail-jets, every time I've seen them running, I look at them and go, ooh, that's even a little better than my Roco railjet in terms of just how it looks. I don't talk to people enough about Jägendorfer to hear how high quality they are or whether they're glitchy. I don't know. They do make limited stock for AC. They also, like Brawa, make a lot of variations of the same train so that you can match it to different lines. They're, really trying to help you, like, hey, I'm trying to run this specific line from Innsbruck to Vienna, and they'll make that exact train. So lots of detail, lots of interesting things with that. But Jägendorfer, every time I see them, I'm impressed. But I've never owned one, so I can't comment on that. There are many other companies. There's Rivarossi, which is an Italian company, although it's currently now owned by Hornby. Fleischmann, which used to make HO, a German company, is now owned by the same company that owns Roco. Fleischmann used to make HO in other sizes, but now basically the company that currently owns them, and they're trying to sell them both. Roco is now their HO brand, and Fleischmann is now their N-scale brand. But you can still find Fleischmann AC HO scale trains out there, and they are considered very good. I've never owned one, but I haven't met a person yet who said, oh, my Fleischmann sucks. It's always, oh, these Fleischmann are really nice. And they too have lower price points, but most of their stuff is pricier than what you might find. So, Lilliput makes very limited AC versions of some of their trains. Again, they're DC. And then there's French companies, there's Arnold. There's several other companies you'd have to Google. But really, if you're going to do trains, and you're going to do European trains in HO scale in AC, the three main companies that you're going to look at besides Märklin. Because I'll always go to Märklin first. If Märklin and Brawa make the same locomotive, knowing that maybe the Brawa might be slightly better made, I'll still buy the Märklin just because Märklin's still excellent quality, and Märklin works with Märklin the best. The others might have compatibility issues. So if I were going to grade them, let's say I'm going to grade them on compatibility. Let's give some grades here. I think Roco and Brawa equally are the most compatible with Märklin with the least amount of problems. Piko, excellent quality. I know I kind of sounded like I'm really knocking on Piko. It's just that when I'm comparing what works best with Märklin, I find Piko to be just a little lower. Now again, in the DC world, it's a totally different thing. Piko DC trains are awesome. A lot of people love them. In terms of build quality, I'd put Brawa, Roco, and overall Piko below them. Again, Piko makes high ends, but Piko covers the gamut of really El Cheapo stuff that really you buy for your kids, and if you buy it for yourself, may not look that great on your layout. And then they make some gorgeous stuff as well. But because they have that whole range, and you got to give them credit, they're appealing to different markets, I would definitely give them a slightly lower grade in terms of running on AC. But their higher end stuff, if you want to pay that price, is definitely equal to the other companies. Price. Piko is the best. You're going to get them at the best prices. Piko is cheaper than the other ones. Even their higher ends tend to be cheaper than the high end stuff from other companies. And when you buy their high end stuff, it's gorgeous. Okay, so again, when I'm knocking on Piko, it's splitting hairs. I am not trying to hate on Piko. I think they make good stuff. I just find that of all the companies I mentioned, Piko, for my price range and for looks on my layout, slightly lower quality, slightly lower compatibility than the other companies. So Brawa most expensive, Roco right below that, Piko below that. Jägendorfer collection kind of in the middle there if you're going to look at them, but they have such limited product it's hard to say. And I guess if you just want to say overall bang for buck, that's where I might flip. I said Piko, you'll get decent stuff at a low price, and you probably won't be disappointed. If you're picky about certain things, then Piko might lose. But overall, Piko probably gives you the best bang for buck. Roco is probably the next, where you get a lot of stuff for a price point, and then Brawa being the most expensive. You're getting a lot of bang, but you're paying a lot of buck. So what you have to do is find your model shop, look on eBay if you have to, but look at whatever local model shops you have, whether it's local town or look online, even the German sites, see what they have. If you can't find a particular model you want from Märklin, you might be able to find it in Roco, Brawa, or Piko. So those are the other companies that will have stuff that fits your Märklin system. Again, I'm talking working in AC with Märklin digital system. When you're talking DC, there's 10,000 companies out there. There's American companies. You want to run American trains. Yes, you can grab your Atlas, your Ahern, your MTHs, and if they are digital, or even straight up DC, but if they're digital, because the American companies are starting to go more digital. Yeah, you can run them on your Trix C-Track. You can run them with the Central Station 3. You can use the Mobile Station 2 with them. They'll load in. It's everything. The only downside to any of that is that you're operating in DC, which means you're going to be doing a little bit more wiring. You have to be more attentive to isolating tracks when you're trying to run multiple trains. There's a little bit more work you have to do in DC than AC. And as I mentioned in a much earlier video in this show, you pay a bit more for AC over DC. So that is a little look at the other companies that make AC product. Hopefully you might find some of that interesting. Just check out these companies. You can't go wrong. I'm probably going to get Piko fans yelling at me about me bashing on Piko a bit. But again, I'm talking in conjunction with AC, Märklin, control, track, and systems. All right, in the next episode, I have talked about the Märklin digital system. I might do a little bit of a comparison of other companies' control systems and can they be used with Märklin. So until then, I will say Auf Wiedersehen, bis bald, and happy trains.